Welcome back, everyone. Great to be here with you today. Can't wait to get into today's intermittent fasting show on our Total Wellness Tuesday here on the Cabral Concept. What we want to go over today are the big differences between alternate day fasting and intermittent fasting. This is super important because they are not interchangeable. So I did a show just a couple weeks back on the difference between intermittent fasting and calorie restriction. Huge differences there. In the past, I've done a show on 5-2 dieting. That's a little bit like alternate day fasting, but not the same. So I'm going to link up those shows so that you just get more and more knowledge about this whole field about nutrition. Because remember, the answers are absolutely out there for you. So I want to just make no mistake about it, because I get well-meaning comments on social media, and I get it. I understand where people are coming from. But when people say, intermittent fasting didn't work for me, I often ask, well, it's like, what type of intermittent fasting did you do? Did you do one meal a day? Did you do 1 day a week? Did you do what we're going to talk about today, alternate day intermittent fasting? Were you just looking at going low carb? Were you looking at your macros? Because people have different definitions of these things, but if we're not all talking the same language, if we're not speaking the same language, we can't help each other in terms of getting results. It's the same thing with functional medicine detoxes. People say there's no such thing as a functional medicine detox. The only thing that your body needs to detoxify. I got this question the other day, or this comment the other day. And again, I don't know if people are just, on the internet, just be like, hey, I don't have anything better to do. Let me just, put in a comment about something negative. Again, I love positive comments. I ask for them. I appreciate them because I love getting your feedback. And I love feedback. I mean, that's the truth, because we've done, today's podcast episode 2055. So 2055 podcasts, and the majority, 80+%, are based on your feedback and your questions, which became a show. 20% for me was saying, I really want to teach these things and I want to make sure it gets out there, because maybe the questions aren't even known in order to be asked. And so that's a big thing too, because, when I hire a coach for whatever it might be, I've hired coaches for literally everything, for performance, for sprint triathlons, for swim coaches, for martial arts instructors, you name it. And sometimes I don't even know the right question to ask, because I don't even have the knowledge set yet. So that's what I try to provide from 25 years, 250,000 plus client appointments in this integrative health-based field. But the truth is this, is that I want your feedback, no doubt about it. Getting back to our friend who asked the fasting about functional medicine, well, your liver only needs a detox, alcohol and drugs. Well, of course, that's not the truth. This person's coming just from a different level of knowledge, where maybe they don't want to expand, maybe they don't want to grow. But I know if you're listening to this show, you know that there's so much more to it. So what we've spoke about in the past is the 5-2 diet. I'm going to link that up today at 2055. So StephenCabral.com/2055. We've talked about intermittent fasting, lots of shows on that. I will link up that main podcast page there. And I know over the last couple of weeks that I just spoke about the difference between calorie restriction and intermittent fasting. Huge differences. There it is on episode 2021. So I'm going to link that up for you today as well. Again, all links, so I don't keep saying it, will be at StephenCabral.com/2055. And remember, all of these podcasts are free and you're able to search all of them. So let's go over what alternate day intermittent fasting is, who I recommend it for, the big benefits, and I would say big downsides as well, and why I don't believe it's the right thing for everyone to do. Just like anything, right? There's something called bioindividuality. And that's really what matters the most, is what works best for your body, but while it's balanced. All right. So most people think of alternate day fasting. So alternate day fasting, ADF, I might say ADF today. That means alternate day fasting. It's basically this. You have one day where you eat whatever you want. Honestly, it's pretty much whatever you'd like. That's the principle of ADF. Now, there are healthier ways to do it. We'll talk about that. And then on the alternate days, so Monday, eat whatever you want. Tuesday's going to be 500 calories or no food at all. So typically 500 calories is thrown out there. I'll talk about that in just a moment, if that's an arbitrary number or not. And then Wednesday, eating whatever you'd like again. Thursday, we're eating 500 calories or less. And then we're just alternating like that, right? Alternate day diet. Sometimes people give themselves the weekend to also eat whatever they'd like, which is 2 days in a row. But again, That's why when you say the term paleo, not everybody knows what it means. Like, I mean, at the same thing, right? So does paleo include beans? Well, for some people it does, and some people it doesn't. For paleo, do you eat, can you have alcohol on a paleo diet? Well, people are like, well, if it doesn't come from a grain, then you could have it. Okay, well, again, like, were they drinking alcohol in Paleolithic times? Or we can kind of go back and forth and debate. And I think the debates are actually healthy as long as you have two people that are not focused on necessarily being right, but actually having a nice conversation, which seems more and more difficult to do these days. But I hope that you are participating in a healthy debate often with people. So let's get into this. So 500 calories a day, right? You can get the part of one day you eat whatever you want, literally whatever you want. Times of the day doesn't even matter for the alternate day fasting. I'm going to give you a healthier way to do this, but overall, that's what it is. And then 500 calories, let's say, on a fasting day. So that's your alternate day. So what does that look like? And this is a really troubling one for a lot of people. Because the 500 calories to me seems arbitrary, and it does for most people. And so I want to explain that to a greater degree for you. It's technically not just 500 calories. It's more like 20 to 25% of your energy expenditure or your basal metabolic rate. And I would even say your active metabolic rate for the day. So basically you're taking your basal metabolic rate. I've talked about that on a previous show. I'll link that up here today as well. But also what you do for your activity level. It's not going to be dramatic more, but it could be anywhere from 300 to 500 calories for a lot of people if they're active that day on a fasting day. I'll get into whether you should work out on these fasting days or not in just a moment. So 20 to 25%. Now we've got a little bit better of a calculator, right? So let's say you're eating 1,600 calories per day. Well, then that person would eat 400 calories for the day. What if the person typically on a daily basis to maintain their energy expenditure, so no weight gain, no weight loss, they eat 2,000 calories a day? Okay, well at 2,000 calories a day, now we're talking. Now it's 500 calories. So you can start to see that the 500 calories is somewhat arbitrary, but based on about 20 to 25% of your energy expenditure, or think of it this way, just your typical daily caloric intake for the day. If you don't know what it is, well, you can use lots of free apps to just basically plug in what you eat on a daily basis. Do that for 1 week. You'll take the average. That's basically what it is. Most people eat. They do eat for the most part, except for maybe a flex meal or the weekend. They eat pretty much Monday through Friday, the same amount of calories, give or take 200 to 300 calories for the day. I know that might seem like a lot, but if we're talking about over a 5-day window, it's going to average out pretty well. Again, that doesn't mean it's the best thing to do or healthiest thing to do, but for the most part, that is what it is. So on the 500 calorie or less days, because most people are probably eating 2,000 calories or less per day, again, not saying everyone is, but you'll be at a 500 calories. Now, here's the important thing, because a lot of people are doing a high fat, lower carb diet. Now, if you are doing that, you really can't do that on a fasting day that is only 400 to 500 calories. And I want to give you a very simple reason as to why. Every tablespoon of fat, let's take a tablespoon of butter, tablespoon of coconut oil, a tablespoon of olive oil, a tablespoon of avocado oil, whatever your favorite fat is. Well, if we just take 1 tablespoon, it's approximately 120 calories per tablespoon. Pretty simple math. We're looking at just about, well, let's just keep it at that, 120 calories per tablespoon. All right. So if we have 2 tablespoons, you know tablespoons are pretty small, right? So a tablespoon per 120 calories. Well, if you have 2 of those, you're already at 240 calories. So if you're looking to do 1 or 2 meals on your fasted day, your 500 calories or less, all you can have at each one of those 2 meals is literally 2 tablespoons of olive oil, right? So that's not the best way to do it. Now, let's juxtapose that against the 2 meals a day where you can actually have 3 to 4 ounces of protein. Okay, your choice. It could be vegan-based. It could be paleo-based, fish, whatever you like. And another 2 cups of vegetables. Believe it or not, you can have that as a meal. You can't add fat to it, but you can have that as a meal, and you could actually have that twice for the day. Or you could simply do a mid-meal, which is going to be around, let's say 12, 1 o'clock for good digestion. And you'll double that. You'll do some around 6 ounces of protein. You could actually add maybe 1 tablespoon of olive oil at that meal. 2 to 3 cups of veggies, and believe it or not, that's just a 500 calorie meal. So that would work for most people. Now that you know how to do the fasting days, and again, you know the other days are basically just eating whatever you want. So now why would someone do this diet? Well, there's been a good amount researched and written on this. And so a lot of people find this type of diet easier to stick to, meaning like they're going to eat normally, however they want to. Like literally it's the person who doesn't want to diet. And on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and let's just add maybe a Sunday to that and then start to alternate after that. Okay, they're just going to eat whatever they want. That's it. They're going to have the normal wake up, have a muffin, have their coffee, whatever it is that they eat. And then at lunch, they're going to have maybe a sandwich from down the street. Maybe they're being good and it's a side salad. And then let's say they do a cookie mid-afternoon, and then they do dinner, and dinner might be, I don't know, like it's going out to dinner, and it could be pasta, it could be whatever they'd like, and maybe it's a glass of wine, right? Okay, so that's what they're doing. And again, I'm not saying that you should eat that way, but I'm saying it's this diet is best for that person that says, okay, then the next day, well, I'm just going to have a piece of salmon, 2 cups of broccoli, and I'm going to do a little bit of olive oil on top with some sea salt and pepper. Okay, great. And like that's their one meal at lunch the next day. If that works for them, then great. You know, I would love this to not be their full-time diet forever. I'm going to give you the reasons why. But believe it or not, it does work for a lot of people because they say, okay, I'm going to eat how I normally would the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and then alternate the days with just one meal, let's say. It's probably easier to do one meal and then just drink lots of water, some coffee if you would like, especially the first half of the day, ideally not the second half of the day, or some tea. And that should just be 0 calories, so black coffee, water without any sweetener, and no fruit juice, anything like that, not even any vegetable juice. And then you could do your teas if you'd like as well. Herbal teas are great because there's no caffeine in them. So when doing the ADF diet, the alternate day fasting diet, there's actually some good research in terms of cardiovascular benefit, heart health, autophagy, which means kind of cleaning up the body of cancer cells, etc. But I don't want you to believe that this is actually better than intermittent fasting, which I'll get to in just a moment. So here's the thing though. This is one big benefit to alternate day fasting, and I do want to share this with you. So if you look at calorie restriction alone, which by the way, most of the research beneficial research attributed to the alternate day fasting diet is actually based on its ability to reduce calories for the week. So I just want to throw that out there, that when you are only doing 500 calories for 3 to 3.5 of those days, right? If we're looking at the average of a week because it's alternate day. Okay, well, you're taking down your calories, what? 1,500 if you're on a 2,000 calorie a day diet. So you're taking them down 1,500 times 3 minimum. So that's 4,500 or so. Take it up to a little over 5,000. So if you look at it, you're taking your calories down over 5,000 calories per week. Okay, so that's considerable, and that does stand for something. That does mean something because calorie restriction does help. It can hurt you as well, and that's why I want you to check out my show on that. But what I'd like to say is this, is that if you do an ADF style diet versus just calorie restriction, which is lower calories every day of the week, there was a really great study, and I'm going to link up the studies as well, that an ADF diet actually preserve the majority of your lean body mass, which is your muscle tissue, which is responsible for your metabolism, right? Because the more muscle you have, the more calories you can actually eat because you burn more calories on a daily basis, especially when those muscles are used during exercise. So it only allowed for a 1% reduction in muscle mass, which is pretty significant. It really is. I know there's multiple studies, 12 weeks and 24 weeks, but a calorie restriction diet, the subjects in the study dropped 6%. Their metabolic rate decreased by 6% when it was calculated based on lean body mass. So a calorie restricted diet for a long period of time is really not good for anyone. 21 days, 28 days, I could be okay with that. But longer than that, definitely not okay with it because it is going to be a great detriment to your thyroid, to your adrenals, to your overall lean body mass. So an ADF diet is definitely superior to calorie restriction on a daily basis. Now, what are some of the drawbacks for an alternate day diet? The big one is this. People are hungry. So they're hungry on the fasting days. And one of the reasons why is two hormones called leptin and ghrelin. I'm going to do a show next week, so definitely stay tuned for that. I already planned that one. And that one is on leptin resistance. And then the following week, I'll do a follow-up to leptin and ghrelin. And I'll link up my previous podcast on leptin and ghrelin here today as well. But the problem is that you have to control leptin and ghrelin. These are two fat-burning hormones. I'm not going to get too deep into it today, but the more hungry ghrelin, the more hungry you are, the more that hormone saying you need to eat, and it can actually start to promote more fat storage. So not a huge fan of that. It is one of the drawbacks of the ADF diet. Some people, though, do get used to this style of dieting, and so they do much better with it. They basically help to better reset their leptin and ghrelin levels. Their body gets used to this style of diet, however, not for everyone. All right, there's definitely some hormone flux during this type of diet. On your fasting days, many people will produce higher levels of cortisol when their body starts to drop into if they drop into a lower blood sugar-based state. More of those fight or flight hormones are released, cortisol and norepinephrine being two of those, and that could also negatively affect the thyroid. Okay, we talked about leptin and ghrelin. There does seem to be at least a greater propensity for binge eating the next day. So if you fasted and you only ate 400, 500 calories, the next day your body might be looking to rebound and get some of those extra calories back in. Didn't happen to everybody in the study, but certainly happened to some. And let's see, this was a year-long study, and it found that the adherence to following an alternate day fasting diet, where the calorie intake was reduced to just 25%. We talked about that before, of your daily calories, was not actually superior in terms of adhering to it than an overall calorie restriction diet, which I've already said is not the best out there. Lots of studies on this, about a half a dozen to, let's say, 8 studies just on the adherence. And the last one was on body composition. So people following the alternate day fasting diet, honestly, for the diet on the fasted days, it didn't seem to matter whether it was high or low fat. So that was interesting as well. The macros didn't seem to matter too much. What seemed to matter was simply reducing the calories overall, which makes sense because that was the conclusion of most of these studies. So my conclusion, what I'm recommending from an integrative health practice perspective of functional medicine, functional nutrition-based practices, I don't believe that this is a healthy style of eating. I don't believe that eating a greater amount of food on one day and then not eating the next day and then eating high the next day is great for overall stress on the body. It's a hermetic stressor every other day. If you're adding exercise to that, you're not getting enough sleep. It's not exactly ideal. Plus, the whole thing about healthy eating is to get into healthy eating habits. This is having to do different things on different days. What I teach inside of my practice to other integrative health practitioners, and obviously my private wellness practice, is that you want to get into a nice routine, a routine for sleep, a routine for exercise, and of course, definitely a routine for nutrition, which means your breakfast is pretty much within a half hour of the same time every day. Same with lunch, same with dinner. And there's definitely some flexibility within that, of course. But whether you're doing 12 hours a day for an intermittent fast, 14 or 16 hours or so, most people can find a really nice window within that. They actually better stabilize their hormone levels, adrenal, thyroid. They better stabilize leptin and ghrelin, so they're burning more body fat. Again, that's proven as well. And the other thing is this, is they're setting up a better, healthier relationship with food, because you don't want to go really... you don't want to go off the hinges every other day, because what happens is that's a greater inflammatory response. So what you really want to do is focus on the why behind your healthy eating. I'm eating a healthier breakfast. Here's why. I'm eating a healthier lunch. Here's why. And a healthy dinner. Here's why. That's so important. And then, of course, teaching it to your children as well. So I recommend picking your favorite intermittent fast, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. And then what most people, I shouldn't say most people, what I recommend for a lot of people in my practice is that they do a once a week longer intermittent fast. And I have a podcast on that as well, the 1-day reset diet, where you're simply going from dinner one night to dinner the next. So you're eating every day, but for what I do is 3 out of 4 Mondays a month, I stop dinner Sunday night, and then I don't eat during the day on Monday, and then I have dinner on Monday night again with my family. This allows me to get a full 24-hour day of autophagy, and really I believe it's the best of all worlds. That's also a day that I don't need to necessarily make it a hard workout day, or even any workout at all if I don't want. So it's a much simpler way of doing this. You're going to get much more benefit in the long run. And again, I'll link up those previous shows. So hopefully that was helpful today. Alternate day dieting, calorie restriction, intermittent fasting, and intermittent fasting with a 1 day a week longer fast. So many more shows. If you're new to intermittent fasting, I can't recommend enough. Just going to stephencabral.com/podcast, swipe the little graphics at the top, click on the intermittent fasting podcast, and you'll get plenty more shows. Take care, everyone. Hopefully this was helpful, and please do feel free to share this with anyone else you believe it could serve.